Hello, and welcome to another edition of Up Close on METV. METV has had the opportunity over the years to produce several programs that have featured people in our community that have made a significant difference. On this special edition of Up Close on METV, we're joined by Mr. Harry Kinnan, a 16-year veteran of the Manatee County School Board. Mr. Kinnan, I can't thank you enough for participating today. We're really looking forward to having this conversation.
Well, Charles, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you personally, and I appreciate what METV does for the community and what you personally do. So happy to be here.
Well, thank you, sir. Let me give you a brief background about Mr. Kinnan. He was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and moved with his family to Manatee County in the 1950s. He's a product of the county school system, starting with Ballard Elementary School. Mr. Kinnan is a graduate of Stetson University with a master's degree from Florida Atlantic University. He entered the United States Army Artillery and attained the rank of captain before embarking on a career in education. He's an educator and a basketball coach at Manatee Community College for over 26 years. His honors include the Florida Community College Merit and Service Award in 1994 and his election to the Florida Community College Basketball Hall of Fame in 1995. In 2006, Mr. Kinnan was elected to the Manatee Community College Athletic Hall of Fame as well. In 1996, Mr. Kinnan was first elected to the Manatee County School Board, and he serves as its chairman from 1997 through 1999, 2001, 2006 to 2007, and the 2011 and 2012 school year. He has received and been honored with the Martin Luther King Senator Ed Price Humanitarian Award in 2000 and serves as the Federal Relations Network representative for the Florida School Boards Association. And he has lobbied in Washington for many education issues. Mr. Kinnan was also invited to be part of the Reading and Literacy Partnership of Florida. He has been interviewed by the Wall Street Journal and the Baltimore Sun on educational issues. And in 2008, Mr. Kinnan was re-elected to the school board. Also in 2008, Governor Christ appointed him to the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council. Mr. Kinnan has been married 44 years to Sue, a longtime educator as well. And they have 3 adult children, Christopher, Courtney, and Patrick, all graduates of the local school system. And I have 3 granddaughters, Evelyn Grace, age 7, Abigail Rose, age 5, and Calla Marjorie, born in 2012. Mr. Kinnan, you know, if we read any more, we'd have to cut the program short. It's really a pleasure reading that because it shows your significant impact, not only in the community, but also what you have done over these years for Manatee County School System.
Well, that's kind of you to say that. I've enjoyed every moment of service, starting with my days at the college and certainly through my time with the school board. It's been a wonderful experience.
And we want to talk about all of that, but I want to take a few moments, if I may, to talk about your family and your family influence. I had the pleasure of meeting your mother, Marjorie, on several different occasions, and she was truly a leader in this community. Tell us a little bit about growing up and the influence that she had on you.
Well, I'd be happy to. I've had great women influence me in my life, I will tell you that. And you mentioned my wife, Sue, who for 45 years has been my,
wonderful.
My anchor. But in reference to my mother, I think what she did was she really set a standard for public service. She very selfless. She showed, I think, how a public servant should be, how you should do it for the right reasons and should work with people, collaborate with people, and be very, very ethical. All these things, and have a great heart for children. So all these things were mirrored to all of the children, all of us, my brother and sister, who were both educators as I was growing up. So I think I'm fortunate that I had privy to that sort of a model in my formative years, if you will.
And she's left a really rich legacy too. The Marjorie Kinnan awards each year for the Education Foundation. The naming of the Marjorie Kinnan School is another legacy. And I can only imagine that, you know, seeing her children grow up to be educators as well was a great reward for her.
I think so. She was a believer in public service, and I know she was always pleased that we went into education, and she set a very high bar for us, and I think that's good. I think you want your parents, and we hope that we've done that for our children, and for our grandchildren, we hope their parents will set a high bar and then help them get over it. So she did set a high standard of what public service should be.
Well, I want to take some time to kind of go through, you know, all the many careers that you had, you know, being a captain in the Army Artillery. You know, obviously, how young a man were you when you enlisted in the Army?
Well, I was 21, 22 years old when I just graduated from college. I was a product of ROTC, and this is one reason why I feel so passionately about our junior ROTC program that I know we'll speak of in a little bit. And it was an interesting time. And I served with many men who fought in World War II. You know, it was a transitional army back in the middle 60s with Vietnam really starting to flare up, and with the fact that there were so many people that were had been products of the greatest generation.
Correct.
So that had quite a profound impact on me. I should tell you, my father was a career Army man, and so I guess Army service it was ingrained in me at a very early age, and so it did. I think we're formed by events in your life, and certainly the opportunity for service as a very young man in the armed forces was a formative part of my education.
And service to country is something that, you know, that you've talked about quite frequently. And as we get into some of the initiatives that have been part of your career during the school board time, we want to talk about ROTC.
Good.
But after you came out of the Army, you found a career which I like to think was pretty unique. You went to Manatee. At that time, was it Manatee Community College, or was it still junior college?
It was actually junior college at first, so I survived several name changes.
So you came on board the Manatee Junior College, and did you come on as a coach, or were you assistant coach at that time?
No, I was hired as, from Steve Korchek, one of my many mentors, along with people like Gene Witt in education, who were very instrumental in influencing my decisions as professional educators. And I was hired as the head coach, and also was, and Dr. Korchek believed in this. I think it's great. He wanted all of his coaches to be full-time faculty. So I had the pleasure and really the honor of working with not just athletics, but working with students and teaching students. And I always enjoyed that part of it.
Well, you as a coach, you had not immediate success, but you had some great success as a coach over at the college, didn't you?
Well, we were very successful. I was blessed. I found I could coach great players a lot better than I am. And I should also say that I've always been surrounded by very talented people. In talking about coaching, I had a long-time assistant, Chip Sines, whose father was a former coach at MCC. So I think that there was great stability in the program. I was surrounded with great people who worked with me my whole coaching career there, and it was a wonderful time at the college, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
But yeah, I think you're being a little humble here. You actually went on and coached State College, state title team.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That had to be quite a thrill.
And we were number 6 in the country. So we were nationally ranked. So we did. We had a lot of success, and we enjoyed the support of the community in a way that you know, it quite hasn't happened that way since, but it was quite an experience.
And being inducted into the College Sports Hall of Fame, and we've done several of those events in the past, and it's always very rewarding when they come back and they see their former teammates and coaches. That had to be a significant honor. Well,
it really was. It may just be proof that if you live long enough, good things happen to you. But I was always honored when something like that happened. I never sought out those awards, but yes, it's one of the highlights of my professional career are those honors that you're mentioning.
Now, as you mentioned, you know, being at the college and being involved with young people and their education, that became kind of a catalyst for you to move into a political career, because being involved with college students and, you know, seeing, you know, young people, you know, coming up, it had to make a difference and say, in 1996, I want to throw my hat in the ring.
Well, it really did. I felt that I had seen children and young people when they had come out of the system. So I really had an insight as to what it was like after they completed their education. As you mentioned, coming from a family where education was such at a premium, people in the community had asked me to run for that seat in '96, and it just seemed like my belief in public service, that it was a natural extension. So I was excited to try. I'm not a politician. First and only thing I've ever run for in my life was the school board, but I was excited at the opportunity, and I've never stopped being excited about being part of the school board.
And as a 16-year career can attest to. But during that period of time, you know, from '96 and, you know, 2012, a lot of things have changed, and there, you know, growth and development and new programs, new policies, new initiatives all take place, and you've been there through all of that. And I want to kind of talk a little bit about how that kind of materialized. In '96, it was a much smaller school district.
Oh yes, we probably had we have 45,000 students now. We were in the low to mid 30s then, and probably had 2/3 the schools we do now. So it was almost the type school system that one person could really make even a profounder difference than perhaps today, because of the size of it. So it was a different time, certainly in '96.
And you know, as each successive election that you went through, you know, kind of growth happened, development happened, new techniques, technology, all began to play a part in the development of the school system.
Exactly right. As I look back in '96, first of all, we weren't on TV, we weren't televised live. And I tell people the first thing that changed when we went to live TV was everybody's wardrobe improved by 100%.
It looked a lot better, didn't it?
We did. So I had an opportunity to be there as technology really started to transcend into education. And I like to think Manatee County was always in the forefront of that, of using and being able to use all technology, not in the classroom, but in the ability of METV to bring it to the community in a way that hadn't been done before. So it was an exciting time to be in education starting that time, a time of great change, a time of accountability. For the first time in the late 1998 under then Governor Bush, accountability became a real key to education. So I feel like I was really in on the formation of a lot of things leading up to where we are today, but those are things that I think were very important.
Well, and that's an interesting point. You know, as you've gone through in your career, in a 16-year career, you've seen the kind of the ebb and flow and the emphasis on education. Governor Bush was, you know, all about education. He was very focused on it, and still is, you know, even to this day. But you've seen that kind of that change throughout political seasons.
Yes, it really has. You must remember when I first started, we didn't have charter schools. And of course, our current governor is a proponent of charter schools, and we have 11 charter schools. And it depended upon the administration, but I think everybody understands the importance of a good education system and how it interacts with the economy. The Chamber of Commerce has a stake in it. The whole community wants an educated group graduating from school every year. So that hasn't changed. The way it's delivered has changed a lot. Gee whiz, we have virtual school now.
Right.
We have a lot of things, but it's still, I think, insistent upon the community. They insist upon us to have a quality education for our young people and know the value of our teachers. So that's been something that I think has been very stable throughout my whole tenure.
And I think that continues to even to this day.
Sure.
Now, one of the key things that happened during your tenure is that the Manatee County School District initiated a sales tax, and that was a half-penny sales tax,
Right.
and that was a kind of a crucial thing because of the development of new schools, new property. As growth developed,
That's right.
new schools, renovation of older schools was critical, and the half-cent sales tax was the most critical thing for funding, for revenue source.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, and you almost have to go back to that time. And one of the factors, when I came on the board, I don't know that the governmental agencies, the county commission, the school board, I don't think we were as close-knit and probably worked collaboratively as much as we do now. One of the things that's happened, and I've talked to many of my friends who were involved with this from the county commission back in those days, to people like Cliff Walters, who really headed up the Accord, as it was called,
Exactly.
was and I was blessed to be part of the board, an instrumental part of the board when this happened. And what the Accord did was it enabled all of the governmental bodies to sit down, talk about a lot of issues, work together, make some commitments about the future. And I stand convinced, and I think most of my friends do from that era, that the Accord and showing that all of our groups work together was the critical piece in passing that sales tax. Without that sort of collaboration with all the government entities, the sales tax probably wouldn't have passed. So it goes back to a lot of people of whom I've mentioned, but as we look back in hindsight, that was really a watershed moment for bringing the community together, and the outcome was the sales tax was, as we were growing 3% a year, was critical to being able to reach the needs of building and renovating schools. So that was in my early years, I think that was quite an important piece to the puzzle.
And you know, I'm really glad that you mentioned the Accord, because prior to that there had been, let's say, misunderstandings between all of these entities. And I think, thanks to you and people, that had like a longer vision, is that Accord came to pass. And from that Accord came that half-cent sales tax. And at the time, Superintendent Dan Nolan,
Right.
who played a critical part in the development of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think it took a lot of people, but Dan, who is a dear friend, remains a dear friend, was the perfect person to help shepherd this through. I remember many nights when he and I would go out to all parts of the county to talk about it, and we were well received and people wanted to know, but the community had a lot of confidence in Dr. Nolan, and they had a lot of confidence in the board and what we were delivering. So it passed resoundingly at a time, both before and after, that those initiatives have been hard to pass. But Dr. Nolan was very, very influential in that.
And the half-cent sales tax, as the community well knows, allowed the school district, to grow, to build new schools, to renovate schools
Right.
that needed the renovation, and to continue to prosper. And it was something that the community should be very proud about.
I think so. It's one of the real high water marks of my experience, and I think of what's happened on the board in the last 15 years. And it enabled us to do a lot of very positive things. And we now have good quality buildings, and I think that's important. We want great teachers teaching motivated students, and we want them to do it in beautiful facilities.
Well, along the way, though, you've been involved in so many initiatives and so many commitments to the students and the faculty and the staff of the Manatee County School District. And I just want to take a few moments to take about one of those. And one of those things that we talked about is your commitment to junior ROTC. Now, Manatee County should be very proud that junior ROTC is available in all of the high schools here in Manatee County. And the growth of it is very successful.
Oh, it's, I think, one of the things we should be most proud of. We have 1,400 young people involved in junior ROTC. They learn discipline, they learn service, they learn public service, they learn all these values that we really want to instill in every child that graduates from Manatee County. And as you mentioned, we're the only county in the state that has junior ROTC in every one of our high schools. It's one of the things we do well. And one of the also that I love to mention is one of the reflections of that or an outgrowth of that is we have the Wall of Honor.
That's true.
When Iraq was really flaring and Afghanistan was beginning, we felt there was a feeling among a few of us that the only people that were really not committed to it, but the only people that were really involved were those that were serving, that there was a lack of connection between the whole community and the service, because we now had a volunteer army, et cetera. So we have a wall where we have every student that served in either one of those theaters. We have their name, and we've lost 6 of our young former students.
That's true.
Have paid the ultimate price. When you walk into our building downtown, our student support building, the first thing you see is that. I hope it will always be that. I hope it will always be a reminder to the sacrifice that young men and women of Manatee County have made in the last 10, 15 years. So that's something that I'm really happy about.
And you should be very proud of that, Mr. Kinnan. We were there when the wall was dedicated in the evening. It was a great turnout of all the community leaders. And you were sort of the catalyst to make that happen. And paying tribute to those young men and women who have lost their lives is a real homage, not only to the sacrifice that they've made, but also a kind of a remembrance for this community.
Exactly, and I think that's the whole point, is we never want to forget that so many of our young men and women have volunteered to go over there and serve, and that 6 again lost their lives, made the ultimate sacrifice, and we should always keep them in our thoughts and prayers, shouldn't we? And we're coming up upon Veterans Day in a couple weeks, and so we'll try to be mindful of that again and tell the community about that again.
And it's something that not just the school district, but the entire Manatee County community should be very proud of, is that the school district recognizes the sacrifice of those who have paid the ultimate price.
Well, and I think the community is appreciative of it. And we have a lot of retired military here.
We do.
I think there's a great connection between our junior ROTC program and the community. And I love to talk about it.
And I think you're right. And I think, I've heard you speak on, and we've had the opportunity on a couple of occasions to do the junior ROTC ball, which you've sung the praises of. It's got to be rewarding to see all those young people all dressed up, for an occasion, kind of, celebrating.
Yes, it is. I should mention that this was really the brainchild of my mother to start with.
Yeah, I think it was.
So we can segue into that, and she really felt that this was something that this community would be enriched by. And so what I've done is just continue, I guess, if you will, the family tradition of that she started, and she's, it was one of the many things that she lightly felt would be very positive and did. So and
her initiation, but you've really carried the flag on this.
Well, thank you.
But aside from that, you undertook, there's a lot of other initiatives and programs and outreach that you've done during your tenure. And one of those that you've been involved with and your whole family has been involved with is reading outreach. Your lovely wife, Sue, as an educator herself and as a reading instructor and coach, was very involved in, Read Across Manatee and other things of that. Why do you think, the emphasis on reading is so important?
Well, I think, first of all, reading is education. If you can't read, you cannot access the American dream. I believe that passionately. Now, you mentioned my wife, Sue. She is my hero on that. She is, has her whole life been involved, her whole professional life been involved in reading and in the delivery of reading to young people as part of the curriculum committee in the classroom. And it's one of those projects that it made eminent sense early that we needed to really embrace it and be sure that we were getting the message out and giving the support. We've had reading coaches in that in the classrooms. That it is, again, reading is education. And I think this school system, I think we've done a great job in trying to prioritize that and making sure that that always got the attention that it deserved. So you're right, the reading initiative, in fact, I was fortunate, the first Governor Bush appointed me to his reading and literacy initiative. So I actually got a chance to see that unfold at a time that we were just starting to acknowledge that we needed to do more in the area of reading.
Well, I think you set the groundwork and the foundation for that, because that's one of those things that will carry on, you know, throughout, because of the emphasis that you've placed and you and your colleagues have placed on reading initiatives.
Well, I'm just one of many, and I would be the first to say that. But I think that's in place, and I think that the future boards and future administrations will continue to, know that it's important. And give it the support it needs in the classroom, and also in the area of support for children that need to be caught up on reading. You know, we have so many transient young people in our community, and so many people that come to us and are behind and don't read well, and so there's always a need there. And my lovely colleague Barbara Harvey always is mindful of the fact that we need to reach these children at whatever level they are, and then do all we can to help them reach their full potential in reading. So it's a commitment the board has had for some time.
And I think that's something that will carry on and continue because of the emphasis. It's every child needs the emphasis. But among the other things that you've accomplished and the outreach that you've done, and I'm just going to speak from a personal level, is that you initiated several years ago a series of town halls outreach, and before then it wasn't really done. It was school board meetings, which are well attended and everything, but you actually took the concept of doing town halls at different schools throughout the county to kind of one-on-one, for lack of a better term, with parents and staff and faculty at different locations. Tell us a little bit why you thought that was necessary.
Well, first of all, I can remember when we started this, I don't think METV was even involved in it. I mean, I can remember going out to some schools and the principal would sit where you are and write notes, and then the parents would be right there, and we just have a discussion, a dialogue, if you will, about education, what was important. I felt that I've always felt that it's very important to have that sort of outreach. And as you look, as we even got into the superintendent search, the first thing we organized was having a
series of town halls.
Yeah, town halls. At Palmetto and West Bradenton and Manatee, and then at Bradenton River. So I just felt it was important to take, it's not always easy for everybody to come to our meetings, time-wise or location-wise. It was very important from the outset to reach out to the community and give people an opportunity, a forum, if you will, to talk about what was important to them, what they thought was happening, and to just listening to them. So that's something that was started quite some time ago, and I'm very pleased that it's continued, and that I think this system and the district has a pretty good reputation of continuing that, the town hall meetings and just outreach to the community and involvement in the community. So I'm happy about that. Well,
and I must say, so I think you were one of the ones that initiated that, and I think other people see the value and the merit in continuing to do that. So hopefully that tradition will carry on.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
But as a school board member, they're obviously, with policy and being a responsible leader, there's so many issues that come on the school board plate each and every month, each and every day, and there's a lot of issues. One of those has been the biggest issue, that school districts across the state is of course the FCAT and accountability. And there's been changes over this.
Right.
I mean, there was an emphasis. Now perhaps there's not so much an emphasis coming from the governor's office. Tell us what your feelings are about FCAT.
Well, first of all, the board, we passed a resolution where we expressed our belief in accountability. I think we have a moral obligation to be sure our children are educated
Absolutely.
when they graduate. So we believe in accountability now. Having said that, we feel that the FCAT in many ways has not fulfilled perhaps the promise that it offered to us, and that it was used sometimes to, I won't just say as a punitive measure, but conclusions were formed by it about schools that were just not accurate, as well as about young people. So I think there's been for several years, without compromising on accountability, a need to look at the structure and say, look, we can do this better.
Right.
We can develop something that is a positive interest, positive instrument, something that can be used by the community, but it will be used in a positive way to check up on our young people, our schools, and not something that's as punitive as the FCAT has been. So I think you're seeing a change and a shift, not away from accountability, but a shift into more ways to, different ways to acknowledge the fact that children learn in different styles.
It's true.
And it's not, one size doesn't fit all.
And there's always room for a revision or a change. And one of the first things that you mentioned was accountability. And I know as a school board member, you've been very vocal and definitive. As school board, you are an accountable steward of Manatee County and its residents. But in doing so, you have to look at an even wider picture.
Right.
A great emphasis right now is what they call on STEM: science, technology, engineering, and math. I hope I included all those correctly.
You got most of them.
And again, you've been one of those people who have emphasized the STEM training at all levels of school is important.
Well, I'm glad we have a chance to just talk on that. We probably lead the state in STEM initiatives. Now we're blessed. We have at Manatee Technical Institute people like Doug Wagner, and and Mary Cantrell, who have been at the forefront of this for some time, and very active about writing grants. And in fact, the exciting new thing is I just signed off on a grant that we're applying for that would bring this STEM program into elementary schools.
What a great idea.
And so we think the earlier that you can reach children with this, the more fruitful it will be. So stay tuned for that, but I think I can safely say that this has been one of the hallmarks of our education system, is that we've been very strong in the area, what we call the STEM area, and we continue to look for new ways to expand that program. And again, we have great people. And I just mentioned a few, and I hate to mention names because you always leave out a few, but you should know that in every area in which we're really developing initiatives, there's wonderful people. And when I say Mr. Wagner, I'm talking about his staff, the people that work with him. And he'd be the first to tell you that write his grants in that. We've got some very talented people, and I think the outgrowth of that is that you'll see in the future as science and technology become an even more integral part of education, that Manatee County is positioned well in that area.
And I think that's another thing that you've been kind of in the forefront on over your 16 years as a board member. But I'm glad you mentioned, talking about staff for a moment. And Doug Wagner deserves all the credit that he does, but you're always singing the praises of people throughout the school district. And I think on many different occasions, I've heard you talk, this teacher or this assistant principal or this principal, need to be recognized for the work, because there's so many good people throughout the school district doing yeoman's work all the time for the sake of having the children succeed.
Yes, there is no doubt. We have wonderful employees, and we need to acknowledge that. I think that's one of the missions we should have, is to recognize excellence wherever we see it, and we have so much of it in our system. So if in some small way my colleagues and I reach out and talk about and acknowledge some of the things that are happening. I think that's very positive. And you know, this is a challenging time. The last 4 years, the budget has been cut every year.
Correct.
And so I think now more than ever, one way you deal with the morale issue is to let people know how important they are to the system and how important they are to the education of our children. And I like to think, and again, that's one of those lessons I've learned from other people. So I don't, but how important it is to reach out, and not just to the people you mentioned, but you know, I tell people the first person that meets the child in the morning is the bus driver.
Correct.
And you don't think that's an important job to have
Absolutely.
50 children on a bus? So we've got into the cafeteria and the food. So we've got a whole group of people that contribute to the end result. And all of them, we need to be very conscious now and in the future of acknowledging all that they do. And they're all part of educating children.
You're exactly right, and I think, you know, that and on many different occasions, not only you but other board members as well have talked about the impact that everyone within the school district makes on a child each and every day, and you've always been very, very upfront about saying whether it's a school bus driver or a custodian or somebody in the cafeteria. All of these people are doing the best that they can each and every day. And I think also one of the things that you might want to talk a little bit about is your commitment to teachers. And you know, you've talked on many different occasions about, you know, how important teachers are at every level for students.
Well, they're the critical piece.
Correct.
And I'd say this, I'm very active with the Manatee Education Foundation. And the reason I am is the foundation's sole purpose for existence is to support teachers through classroom grants and through other initiatives to give them extra resources to help them not only do what they do every day, but perhaps work outside the box to do some very creative projects. So I think that's, and again, I come from a series where my sister and brother were both teachers, and Sue, my wife, was a teacher. So I certainly am aware of the critical piece that they play.
Exactly.
But I really, that's one reason that motivates me to be involved with this foundation, because again, their sole purpose is to support teachers. And I tell everybody that I can that, like I'm telling you, that the more we can focus on that and get resources for our teachers, why, the better, because they're the piece. Without an inspiring teacher, children will not learn.
Well, you know, and you know, the Education Foundation has done some wonderful work. Just recently, they partnered with Gettle Toyota and did a grant. And before that, they did the rally, back to school rally, where they gave teachers, hundreds of teachers, you know, grant money for them to succeed in the classroom. And both Mary Glass and Trish McKay Powers are to be congratulated for their efforts on behalf of the foundation.
Well, they're not to be congratulated. They're really instrumental.
The catalyst of making
they're wonderful, and you touched on the Gettle initiative now, which gave grants to I think 53 teachers.
We were
They're
there.
going to do it again. You were there, and now we have Heart and Soul. We have some fundraisers coming up.
That's
Bill
right.
Galvano,
The golf tournament,
his name for his father, a wonderful man, endows this golf or sponsors this golf tournament. That's been a wonderful fundraiser for us. The whole community has been so supportive of the initiatives, and you mentioned Mary and Tricia and their staff, it takes that sort of involvement. It takes that sort of a partnership in the community with the workforce of the community, with the business community, to make the whole equation work. And we feel like we have that. Manatee County will support public education, and they'll really support it when you can explain to them what it's going for and why you need it, and make the case for it.
And you know, that's an excellent point, Mr. Kinnan, and I just want to take a moment to talk about this, about, you know, the cooperation between the entire Manatee County community and the school district. It's a partnership. Each year, the school district sponsors the Business Education Partnership Award, of which we tape, and it's a wonderful occasion. It shows the business involvement with schools throughout the community. But more importantly than that. I mean, the school district is such an economic driver. 42,000 and counting students, right. One of the largest employers. I mean, it's a great economic stimulator for this community.
Oh, it is. You know, when businesses want to come into a community, the first thing they ask is, tell us about your schools. Mm-hmm. And, you know, our job and our charge is to tell them that you can get a world-class education in our schools. Mm-hmm. Now, see, I believe in that. I'm one of these people that really believes. I saw that. I have 3 children. Sue and I have 3 children who are products of this system. So I've seen firsthand what an education is, what education is available for them and what an education can do for them. Exactly. So there's no doubt that working through the Chamber of Commerce and other groups, we're working very hard at a challenging time, mind you, to assure people and assure businesses that we've got wonderful schools in all parts of the county, and that if you want to relocate or increase your number of employees, that we can meet their needs and give their children a world-class education. And we're excited about that, and we've never wavered in that. We've never wavered in that.
And I think that's an important point to bring up, is that, you know, you cooperate, you look at the business environment. Well, do we need more, you know, perhaps, you know, science things so we can produce a better workforce for all of this community? How can we cooperate? And you're always looking for this. But one of the things I did want to mention just very briefly, and you're the one who sings the praises of each year as graduation comes around, you always express the fact that, you know, Manatee County graduates are going to universities across the country. They're going to Harvard, they're going to MIT, they're going to Yale, they're going to some of the service academies. Absolutely. And what does that say to you about the caliber of education here in Manatee County?
Well, that's a wonderful point, because what we've started a couple of years ago, we said, let's find out. Go call the schools. Let's find out what schools our students have been accepted by, because I think we're going to be excited about it. And so now we publicize. In fact, we have a signing date award night where we acknowledge the myriad of schools. And like you say, they start with all of our state universities, our State College of Florida, and they go to the Ivy Leagues, the service academies. Again, it just, I think, reinforces the notion that you can get a world-class education offered to you in our school system. And so it's exciting when you see 70 or 80 schools that our children are matriculating into, and they represent the best schools. They represent Princeton, and they represent, again, we love the military academies, because there's, again, so many retired military here that I think so many people appreciate the fact that we send so many people to the military academy. So that's something that we started that I think will continue, just an acknowledgement of where these children are going to school. We celebrate our athletes. They get scholarships. Absolutely. That's on the front page. Now we're doing it for our academics, our academic scholars, and we think that's so worthwhile, and I'm sure future boards will want to continue that.
And I'm sure they will, but, you know, the initiatives, you know, keep going on and on. For example, the school district under your watch, you sponsor a college night at the Braden Area Visitors Bureau, you know, each year or a couple of times a year, where you bring in colleges from all over. That kind of lets parents and students know of all of the availability of schools that are out there. And just as importantly is the great things that students and teachers and staff do in the community each and every year. This is coming up on the, I think it's the 3rd or maybe even the 4th annual Stuff the Bus thing that happens, and in conjunction with Publix and other organizations, the schools really pitch in to help fill these school buses with canned food and non-perishables for families that are less fortunate.
Absolutely. I think, again, that's a reflection on Manatee County.
Yeah, absolutely.
We are a caring county. But I also want to be sure that as I reflect back on some of these, I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of different board members over the years. And I can tell you to a person, it's been a joy to work with all of them, from Walter Miller and Larry Simmons. And I don't like to, you know, you lose a name now and then, but the attitude and the emphasis that we have, the emphasis that this board has chosen to put their their thoughts on and their credibility on, really is something that's it has gone on from the past. Certainly, it's gone on from even more than 16 years. You can go back beyond that. So there's a lot of people. It takes a lot of people, and I can proudly say that I've had the pleasure to serve with these people, and as they've helped formulate and help develop some of these things you're talking about. These aren't Harry Kinnan ideas. These are ideas from the Manatee County School Board. Past, present, and future.
And I think you're right too. But being a part of that, being a part of it, you've always been, in my opinion, been a voice where you've built not only consensus, but a thing of understanding, and that's just a perspective from my point of view. But Manatee County should be very proud. We've had the occasion, to see key clubs in action where they've rebuilt houses. Right. This weekend we saw a bunch of kids making meals for the homeless, trying to set a world record for that. So there's a lot of great emphasis on the quality and character of our students in school. Which isn't to say that, unfortunately there's been some tragedies within the schools. I think, when I heard you spoke about the untimely death of the young Stacy Williams, who was shot over here, and you spoke very eloquently about that. There are tragedies, but we have a wonderful school district with great teachers, great staff, and people who want to see the school district succeed, and all children succeed.
Exactly.
And one of the things, Mr. Kinnan, so we kind of wind down because I want to spend a little time on something, is that as you move in, to the new year, and that 16-year career is coming up, there's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of challenges for this school district. And some of them seem, quite difficult. What is your perspective, if you can? Tell us, where do you see the school district moving forward here?
Well, first, I'll tell you that I'm an optimist by nature. And over my lifetime, I've seen, we've had challenges before. And I believe that the board as an institution can work through these issues. I do think, and I said this earlier in the year, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that you have a governor that's kind of changing his emphasis on education, and that's going to be positive. You have people that should get elected, perhaps get elected like Bill Galvano, who are believers in education. And I think that the funding source, as the economy starts to move in the right direction, the funding source upon which we're so dependent, and it's so critical. Fragile. It's a fragile funding source. I think that's going to start giving us some relief. So as I look ahead, I think that the last 4 years, while challenging, I think starting in the future, starting next year, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and I think we're going to start seeing all school districts starting to have the resources. Remember, at a tough time, Manatee County made some decisions. We didn't relieve teachers, and we kept what we think are really critical parts of an education. We kept the arts, we kept all the music, we kept junior ROTC, we kept all the extracurricular activities, including sports. We felt that's part of an education.
Correct.
And so I'm very proud that my colleagues made those decisions the way they did. And I think that the future will indeed, once we work through a few problems and we will be getting a new superintendent. Once we work through these problems, I think there is a real light at the end of the tunnel on this. And when we have this discussion in 2 years, in a retro look, I think that the story will continue in a very positive way.
And I think looking at additional sources of revenue as you go into the future is a critical matter, because the emphasis has always been, and you've always placed the emphasis on what can we do for the classroom, and what can we do for the teacher, and I hope in the future we'll continue to see that kind of not only progress but sense of commitment.
Well, I think so. Now I'm going to spend just a second on my family. Do I have the time to do that?
You have all the time in the world,
okay,
sir.
Because it's important, and I think everybody that's, as they move through life, thinks about people that have played a role. You should know that I have 3 children, as you mentioned earlier, and no educators in the family. So I guess it skips a generation. But Sue has been, you know, my anchor, and certainly the light of my love of my life, and my best friend for 45 years. That's a long time.
I think that's it's just a wonderful.
But here's what I'm leaning to too, is I have 3 granddaughters. So I've learned how to shop for shoes and have pink parties. They're beautiful girls, and I'm thinking that out of those 3, that we will have some educators there. Yeah. So I have 3 beautiful granddaughters, and I'm blessed. I get to serve in an area that I feel passionate about. I represent the community. People, I tell them every time that I have an opportunity, I say, I represent you. And I love that. And I think it's a blessing that I can do that. And I'm so influenced by so many people that have touched my life, that if in some small way I've helped with this, then that's great. I'm really, really happy about that. But I feel like public service is an honor. I've seen that firsthand, and I acknowledge that. And my hope is that in the future we'll continue to draw, and I want to reach out to young people and tell them, look, you need to be the next greatest generation. You need to get into public service. You need to run for the county, for the school board. You need to do that. So I'm trying to get very involved with young people to show them how important it's going to be to have them involved in this process. We need their talent. But it's been an exciting time, and again, I feel blessed and so fortunate that I've been enabled by this community to do what I've done the last 16 years. Loved it all. Excited about it.
Mr. Kinnan, you've made a significant contribution to Manatee County and Manatee County schools, and to the students and the teachers and the staff of the school district. And you know, and knowing Mrs. Kinnan, you know, she's a lovely woman, and you should be considered a very lucky man. So. But I want to take just one moment, if I may, sir, you know, as we kind of wind down on time, because, you know, we've had the opportunity over the years at METV do a lot of candidate forums and political forums and everything. And the difference between a political person is that they're there for the race. There's a big difference in being what I would consider a public servant. And you, sir, are indeed a public servant. And your family tradition, your sense of commitment, your sense of dedication to the school board really is the definition of what I would consider a true public servant.
Well, that's overwhelming that you would say that. Thank you, and
it's my pleasure.
I'm humbled by your comment on that.
And sir, as you move now into another career, hopefully, as you move in, 2 quick questions for you. You know, one, what do you want Manatee County community to know about the state of the school district and where it's going? You know, what is that one thing that you would say about Manatee County School District? And to follow up that, sir, what was that call to action that you would welcome to other people to get them to become involved in their schools, to become involved with their child's education? Well,
first, very good questions. First, I'd want the community to understand that the institution is healthy, and we're looking at things, we're finding answers. There are always situations that come up that require, I think, extensive insight, if you will, but the health of the institution is there. And the reason for that is that the institution is people. You know, that's what we're made up of. You know, 80% of all our money goes towards people, and so that health is good. And the strength of the institution can overcome anything, and that it's a time that we need more than ever the community to understand what's happening, understand what we're trying to do, and get behind us. And you mentioned the second half of your question about what should they do. Now more than ever, the gap has to be filled by volunteers. Now more than ever, people who have talked about and thought about getting involved, and we're talking about grandparents, We're talking about parents, people who don't have children. Nothing is more important than the education of children, and so I would reach out to them and say, now more than ever, we need the support and volunteerism of the community, and that inspires confidence in our system, because when you're involved, you see the great things that are happening.
Right.
That inspires confidence, and I think that'll be the road forward.
Well, having paved the road so far, Mr. Kinnan, with 16 years of dedicated service to this community, and before that, your years of dedication to young people at the Manatee Community College is really a great indicator to this community about the level of effort and the level of commitment that you have brought to this community. And on behalf of METV, we want to thank you very much for taking the time out here, but also for those years of service that you've done and your commitment to the education of children here in Manatee County.
That's very kind. Thank you very much, Charles.
And thank you for joining us on this special edition of Up Close on METV.